Alright, welcome back to the Mega Man-like miniseries. Today we're going to add a new weapon. It's going to be similar to the cutter shot that was in the original NES Mega Man. This one we're going to use Boomerang though. We're going to do a Boomerang shot. And you're only going to be able to throw a couple in the air at a time and all that good stuff. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so this is where we left off last time, where we were in the player gun and we basically made a charge shot for the basic bullet. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a new weapon just right here, and then eventually we're going to differentiate it with a switcher and all that stuff. But for right now, we're just going to make the new weapon. So we're going to go into the resources here. I'm going to add the bullet first. All right, so this is our Boomerang bullet. But along with the bullet, we actually have to add some new sprites for our player. We have to add a Boomerang, like how Mega Man would change skins, basically different colors. That's what we're going to do similarly with NewBot. And what's important to note about these is that I have a normal Boomerang where he's in his normal state, just a different color. And then I also have the Boomerang attack. And you can see that the attack is different. And this is mainly just to show that you can have differing attacks, you can have differing colors. So much is possible with this kind of a setup. So I do need to change these. I think it was 5 and 3. That's correct. And once again, just to reiterate, they're all in the same positions and they're centered in the sprite cell. So now we can go to the animations. We can go to our player. We can click on animation settings, and now we can start to add a couple more tabs. So this third tab we're going to say is just the normal Boomerang weapon. And then the fourth tab we'll say is the Boomerang attacking. And now that we're getting quite a bit of tabs, it's always a good idea to have your notes here. So we could say that animation set 1 equals the basic normal, then animation set 2 equals the basic attacking, animation set 3 then equals the, we'll say Boomerang normal, and then animation set 4 equals the Boomerang attack. And we will list so on and so on as this list gets bigger. All right, so, and now that we have that, it's very straightforward. We can click and we can see that there it is in the 3 and there it is in the 4. So not much we're going to have to do in the way of changing any of these animations. It's already set up. And this is why a process like this is so nice. You look, we only have 3 motions, and yet we're getting all this mileage out of our sets by using the logic to switch the animation sets instead of the object actions to specifically go to these different animations. Now, before we actually get into the logic, we do need to set up the animation for the weapon. Now, we can actually put the weapon in here and it would probably work just fine. However, sometimes it might be easier to just have it in its own separate animation. It's really up to personal preference. So here I'm going to say the weapon 2, which is the Boomerang, and I'm going to add the Boomerang. And we're going to center it, and I'm definitely going to make sure that I center this because we're going to be using rotation. And here, actually, let me remove these wall detections and collision detections so we can see really nice. I'm going to center it. If I kept the center right here, we're going to be utilizing the rotation, and you can see that it rotates around the center. So we want to make sure that the center is actually in the center. So when we rotate it, it's actually rotating from a proper position of the sprite. Okay. So now that we have that, it's just going to be a simple, this is going to be the, we'll just say seeking. And this is going to be it. It's just going to be rotating. So we're going to have this looping. And we're going to use linear interpolation for this. Basically, we want the goal of this. And so the goal of it is going to be, if we want it to do a 360 or a full circle, then we're going to get to a 360. So we want it to be 360 is going to be the goal. And what we're going to do is give it some time to get there. So we're going to say within 10 frames, it's going to linear interpolate. And I got a video on this if you need some more clarification, but basically this is the frame of before is going to be the interpolator, and then the next frame is going to be the goal. And you would need that for as many frames as you had. In this one, it should be a very simple one where I start at 0, and then I rotate 360 circle in 10 frames. And then since 360 and 0 are technically the same, I can loop back and it's going to look the same. So if I, for instance, if I play test this, you can see that it just spins, and it spins pretty normally. Now that might be a little quick, so I'll just add 12 frames. And we'll see how that looks actually. So we'll just keep it for right now. All right, so I got the animation for the boomerang set up. Now we can actually make, and I'll just do this where I copy and paste the basic here. I'll rename it though. I'll rename it to Boomerang. I don't even know if I'm spelling Boomerang right, but we'll just say, yeah, weapon 1, and it's not weapon 1, it's actually weapon 2. Then we'll go into object settings. It's still player attack, that's good, but we want it to be the W2 Boomerang now. So we'll click OK. And we will select the seeking. And that should be all that we need to set up this bullet. So now we can go to our player gun, to our bullet settings. I'll just take the normal one here. And right here, I will say weapon 2 Boomerang. Select the object. And in this one, we'll say, we'll take this off and we'll say, actually, there can only be 3 on the scene at a given time. So we're actually going to set a limit on this one. So now we can actually go into the action programs and actually start to make the logic for it. So first I'm going to change this ready for input because this is actually more specific now. It's actually ready to fire basic bullet, or just basic. We'll say that. I'm also going to color it so that it kind of represents that this is its own little action island or something. Then I'm going to copy and paste this over here, and I'm going to say ready to fire, ready to fire a boomerang, and this one ready to fire basic. There we go. All right, so this one is actually the ready to fire boomerang, and since we are ready to fire the boomerang, see, eventually we're going to have a switcher that will switch from basic to boomerang. And so, but that's going to be the next video. But since we know that we are going to have a point where we are on a boomerang, then we want to make sure that our change animation set for the normal appearance is also changed. And that was set 3. All right, so set 3. And just to test this, I'm just going to make this the default action. And then we're going to play test. And now my character should be blue now, which he is. Now I can't fire or anything because I'm actually in this action right now. I don't have any access to this. But I am blue, and so change animation set worked. All right. And now we need to add, so here, I'll just get it to where we can fire first. So in the gun here. So we're going to just fire this bullet. So we'll say fire weapon 2 boomerang. We're going to change it to fire the boomerang. And we're going to say when X is pressed, because this one can be when it's pressed. And we'll just leave it like this for now. And then we'll say that the out one is going to be after a certain amount of time. And we'll just say something like a 0.15 or like a 0.2 works good. Now, the only thing that we want to do is when we fire the boomerang, we actually want to change the animation set. And by the way, this weapon and the fire version of this is 4. So we're going to change it to 4. But by the way, this weapon is just going to be a simple one. You're just going to throw these in like a circular pattern, which we haven't made the circular pattern yet. And then it's going to go back to normal. So we don't want like the cannon to always be out. We want him, because you'll see that he has a little throwing animation. So now when I press X, he throws it. So it's kind of cool. Right now you can see the weapons are rotating and it looks pretty good. And then he can throw it from jumping, and he can throw it while running. But in this kind of a weapon setup, it does look good when the arm goes back in. It looks like he's constantly throwing it. So I want to keep it like this. So really, as far as firing this bullet, very simple. So now let's actually get into setting up the actual bullet logic. Okay, so since we copied and pasted it, we have this, the seek and the destroy as normal. I'm going to get rid of the destroy, or actually no, I'll just get rid of the link right now. And I'll move destroy down here. We're actually going to need a little bit more to this process. And we're going to have to, first off, we're going to have to check what direction, player direction check. So we're going to have to check what direction the player is facing. And that's going to lead us to two options. So this will be throw left. And actually, I'll just do this. And this one will say throw right. And the link to that is going to be very simple. We're going to add a link, and it's going to be if the switch variable of the player, and specifically their display direction, if it equals to 90, which in a degree, 0, 360 is up, 90 is right, 180 is down, and then 270 is left. So if it's equal to 90, then it's going to throw it right. If it's equal to 270, then it's going to equal left. All right, now that's great. We know what direction to throw it, but how exactly are we going to get that curved shape? And so we're going to do that by utilizing a different move type, right? If you go to the moving and jumping tab, you can see the move type. And usually, well, actually all objects will start on basic, but there are two other move types here as well. You got a tank and a vehicle movement, and they're both the same actually. The only difference between tank and vehicle is that tank has to be moving in order to turn, or sorry, the other way around. Vehicle has to be moving in order to turn, where tank can kind of turn on the spot without moving. So if you click on one of these, you can see over here on the control settings, you can have a move forward, move backwards, turn left, turn right, right? So it turns, it utilizes turning. Now, these parameters don't matter. It's these ones that you want. This right here, back and forth moving and turning parameters. These are the ones that are going to govern your actual turning movement for tank and vehicle. So I'm going to up the speed a bit. We'll just go 6.6. If you had acceleration, this is where you would add that. And then I'm going to leave the turning rotation speeds just to 1. And we will change them in the actions. Because see, in the actions here, you can actually change them right here along with, as you can, like jump speed and horizontal. So that's what we'll do here. All right, so let's set up the right throw first. So once we find the player's direction, we're going to start the curve upward. And so we're going to start manually moving this bullet, which is going to take any bullet setting movement that was pre-assigned, and it's going to throw it out the window. You're basically going to override it. So how we're going to do that is we want to arc it, because you'll notice at the beginning of the video, it has a nice circular arc to it. So we're going to arc it first by changing its direction. And so we're going to click on set move direction and move. And this is how we can simply set the direction. Because it's tank and or vehicle movement, the turning is in degrees. So you can actually have a direction of 28.07 if you wanted. But for this arc, we're actually just going to arc it about a 30-degree angle. So that's going to be its starting direction. And then we're just going to hit OK. So we set the direction, and then instantly we're going to start turning it. And how we do that is with back and forth moving and turning. So we're going to first propel it forward, and then we're going to start turning it right. So what this is going to do is, remember, we set the 30-degree angle. It's going to set 30 degree, then it's going to start moving forward, because this is just like template move setting, where once you set this, it will keep going between all the actions until you set none. So this is kind of like, it's similar to that. So we set the angle at 30 degrees. It's going to start moving forward and turning right at the same time. So you can see how there's an arc to it right there. So we're going to hit OK. And we're also going to change the turning speed. We'll say 200% right here. And about 75 we'll say on the vertical speed right here. Okay. So that's the initial set angle, and then the turn, go forward and start turn right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say circle left to player. So this is going to be a circle. It's going to start heading its way back to player. So we're going to add a link, and then we're going to add a condition of just after a certain amount of time. And this will be, we'll just say like 0.2 seconds. Right. So in this state, we can actually get rid of all of this because we're already set to turn right, which could technically come back to the player. But what we want to do is actually just up the turning speed. So we'll grab this and up it to say 500. Now let's just see what this does. Okay. So we're going to throw right, and it's going to circle. It'll end up circling back to player. So now if I throw it, you can see that it arcs. It starts at 30% arc, and then you can also see that at some point it starts to turn even sharper. All right. So at some point we do want it to return to the player. So let's work on that next. And actually we're going to name this to turn right faster, so we know that it's turning right faster. That just makes more sense. So the next state that we need is we're going to need a return to player. And really, we just are going to wait another certain amount of time. And then in here, we're going to use template move setting, and we're going to say move object back to the player group. Now, this is one of those reasons why it was important to differentiate these objects, so that we can simply just say player group, move towards, and it will move to the player. And so we'll hit OK there. And now we can kind of see more what it will do here. So we're going to fire it. And you can see that it wasn't long enough. So let's adjust that, making sure that it's long enough. And it's in this link right here. So we'll see, we'll put it at about a 0.7. Let's see what 0.7 looks like. And it should make a nice circular arc. And then it just heads right back to the player. And you don't even notice that it's actually changing to player. Now I can't throw any more because I can only have 3 on the scene. You can also see they're really spazzing out at the play location. So we do need to destroy them. Now we're going to destroy them by creating a field of vision. And we're going to name this one player in range. Or actually we'll say destroy range. There we go. Destroy range. And we're just going to see where this falls. We'll give it a radius of 8. And we'll leave it selected right here so that we can see it. And when we hit playtest, oh, preview is what I meant. When we hit preview, it's going to throw it in there. And you can see that's about right. Maybe we'll just go a little bit more. We'll say 10. We'll preview that. There, that looks good. All right, now I can take the apply selected color off. That way we do not see it anymore. And now our destroy state, that's exactly what it can be now. Now we can be if on page 1, if we discover other objects in the destroy range, and that other object is just going to be the player group. So we could do either the player group, or if we were thinking maybe we'll have something else that's player group, we could select the actual player object itself. So we'll just leave it like that. That's fine. And that's going to be the destroy. So now if we played and we throw one, it comes back and it destroys. So that way we can always be throwing 3 on the scene. Now, there is something else, but before we get into that, let's just set up this real quick. We're also, when it turns right faster, there might be a chance that we actually jump into it. And so we do want to also be able to destroy it in this state as well if we happen to hit it. I don't think it's necessary to have a link from throw right per se, because you're waiting 0.25 seconds, and that will give it enough time to get out of the player range so that it doesn't destroy while it's starting the arc. So I feel like about right this time is when you can start detecting to destroy. The one thing I want to make sure, and I didn't do this, is in the basic settings, I want to click none. I want to make sure that there's no critical attack. If you're ever wondering why multiple hits are taking effect, it could be critical attack selected. I don't need any of this invincibility stuff. And I'm just going to go back and change this actually for my other bullets. And then make sure that we select none on the restore condition. That way when you transfer scenes and come back, your bullets don't all spawn again. It's a very common thing to have happen and miss. Okay, now there is one more thing that we need to do. And again, we're focusing on right. Once we get the right logic working, we'll just throw it in on the left side. And that is this. So we can see that I can throw and it arcs like that. But if I was to jump and throw it, and then I continue running under it, or sorry, it's not set up for the left yet. So let me just do the right only. So if I jump, throw it, and run under it, you can see that it took a long time before it actually decided to come back. It actually completed the movement that we wanted it to. Well, it kind of looks sharp and a little, it doesn't look as smooth as it could be. So let's clean that up a little bit. And in order to do that, we're actually going to create another field of vision. We're going to call this the y-axis. And we're going to basically stretch out this Y, maybe 400% here. And we're going to bring it in really short, let's say to 4 dots. Let's see how this looks when we preview it. Oh, that's right. I needed to keep it the dot size right, but I just needed to bring in the scale. That's what it is. So we'll bring the scale into 2. So we're going to up it by 400%, but the X width is going to be by 2 is only going to be 2%. There we go. So, and even the 400% is a little high. So maybe we could get away with 200%. Let's just see. We only need it to actually just be on the screen. So I think 300%, and I will be happy with that. Yeah. So you can see that there's a field of vision that basically follows it, and it's its y-axis basically. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say that we want to return to the player after this much time. And then we'll add another condition of or if we discover in our new y-axis the player object. All right, so both of those, oh, and we got to make sure it's an or. So either that amount of time passes or we hit that y-axis, because that meant that we went either above it or under it. And so now let's test this out on this right facing, and let's see how this looks now. So if we throw it and I go under it, it comes right back to me. And it looks a lot smoother. Now the one thing I forgot to do is actually remove its color so that it's a little more natural looking. Not like a debugger. There we go. And it looks really good. All right, so that is basically the logic. So now we just got to throw in the left side here. We'll say turn left faster. And we can just leave all these settings the same. We can grab this link, copy paste it. Grab this link, copy paste it. The only thing different that we got to do is over here, we can grab these 2 runtime actions, paste them in here, make sure we give our initial turn speed and vertical movement here. Now, instead of arcing to the left, we want to arc it over here. So, or instead of arcing to the right, we want it to arc to the left 30 degrees, and that's going to be 330, because 360 minus 30 would be 330. And then we still want to move forward, but instead of turning right, which would basically defeat what we're trying to do, we want it to turn left. And so this should now return the same results. I'll just make sure that this one gets slapped on right here. And we can playtest. We got right throw, left throw. We throw left, let's see here, throw left, go under it, it snaps back. There we go. And if we throw right, go under it, it comes back. All right, so everything is working really good. The one last thing that we could do, and there's really actually a couple things to do still. One's in this player gun object, but in the animations here, we can actually have this one. See, this one rotates right? It rotates to the right. So that makes sense if we're throwing it to the right. So maybe we actually do need to differentiate the directions. So I'm going to make another one. I'm going to call this 4, and it's going to be left. And instead of rotating to 360 degrees, it's going to rotate negative 360 degrees. So now it's going to rotate to the left. And so then we'll go to objects under the boomerang, and we'll say we want you to seek left, and then we want you to seek right. And these ones are going to be takeover motion. So usually with takeover motion, I say don't set takeover motion. That way I know it's a takeover motion. Sometimes it is nice to know what the motion is. So it just depends. In this case, I like to know that really this doesn't even need to be set, but I'll just keep it here. Then it's going to decide, do I play the left motion or do I play the right motion? Motion, and then this one doesn't set. So let's play test, and you can see that it rotates right, and then it rotates left. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now the last thing to fix is in the player gun object, and basically what's happening is that yes, we can only have, we go to our boomerang settings here, we can only have 3 on the scene. We've limited it that way. But what we haven't limited it is the throwing. So for instance, let's just view this for a second. And I'm going to press X as fast as I can, basically to throw. And you'll notice that I'll throw 3 boomerangs, but then I'm still trying to throw. So just watch. So you can see that I'm still trying to throw, even though I ain't throwing anything. So we need to fix that. And it's very simple. We just have to add another check. And that check is going to be a variable. And we're going to check based on the boomerang variable. And it doesn't matter if it's single or all, because all of them have the same variable value for this particular variable. And whoops, it's not object ID. We're actually going to scroll all the way down, and it's going to be number of same instances placed in the scene. All right, so this is shared between all instances, and it just shows you how many of this object there are on the scene. And so we just want to make sure that it's less than 3, because if we have 3 on the scene, then we can't throw anymore. So as long as we have this check in there, and then we say change if all conditions are met, we can now throw, and then you'll see that I can't throw anymore until I get another one back. So that's how we can limit that. So yeah, that is setting up another weapon. This was a boomerang. We used tank movement. We did a little more with the animation set change, and we did some, I don't know, just some cool stuff. So I hope this video was helpful. On the next one, we're actually going to create the weapon switcher. So we're actually going to make it where in our scene, if you press R1 or L1, it will switch between these 2 weapons. And you can kind of better see how this could grow and be very easy to maintain and expand. And so with that said, I'll see you at the next video.